844-500-4242. 844-500-4242. That is the toll-free number of the Howie Carr Show. If you'd like to join us here this afternoon, every weekday afternoon, we'll be getting back to you. In front of me, just behind me, was Brandon. Somehow the texter got shut off. We're gonna get it fixed right now. But right now, it's time for the Chump Line, voicemail message service of the Howie Carr Show.
Howie, Bernie probably smoked a couple of times. He's not lying, but I'm sure he's not lying when he said he's never used deodorant.
Didn't hear him say that, but caller's probably right.
And Joe Biden said he has the highest IQ in the room. Was he addressing his granddaughter's kindergarten class?
Maybe the funeral home where they keep the cadavers stashed. That's about the only place he could win a Jeopardy game. The Chump Line is brought to you every weekday at this time by Matthews Brothers, America's oldest window manufacturer, offering our prayers to the victims, families, and residents of El Paso and Dayton, and asking when we as a nation will finally address our mental health crisis. Approximately 3.5% of Americans suffer from severe mental illness. Let's fix the problems, not the blame. Incidentally, there was another 4 people killed today in California, I believe, with a knife. Is it time for some common sense knife legislation? You know, I mean, if there's not a gun, they're going to use a rock. If there's not a rock, they're going to use a stick. If there's, what people are going to kill one another. It goes back to Genesis, to the Old Testament, to the days of Cain and Abel. You know, whatever it takes, people are going to use. I mean, you can't stop somebody from doing what they want to do. You have to change their minds and their hearts. And you and I can't do that. Only God can do that, or the person themselves.
Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you for talking about the Senate immersion module. As a result of your publicity, for the first time in years, we had more people show up today than died in the back of my car.
Senator, how many times do I have to tell you, if you really want to get attendance up at the Senate immersion module, you're going to have bring back happy hour to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And also the glass-bottom boat, too, might be a good suggestion to increase attendance. You know, the glass-bottom boat that goes out into the Boston Harbor and everybody can wave to Ted's girlfriends.
I don't know, Howie. I'm on Washington Street in Hudson, Mass, just outside of Duck's Trucks. A lot of Bernie bros holding up signs. Free stuff. Better bring a lot of books and magnets and hats and food. They're already lined up.
Yeah, if you come to Tuck's Trucks in Hudson, Mass tomorrow for our live remote with me and Grace, you will be able to get a free book of some kind. You will, if you're one of the first 25 people, you will be able to get a free Dirty Rats t-shirt promoting our new podcast, which starts 3 weeks from today. And the financial advisor to the Howie Carr Show, Kevin Frisbee, left behind 25 of his books. So first come, first served if you want one of Kevin Frisbee's advice books on how to deal with these perilous times in investments.
So the left is going to hunt us down and kill us as deplorables. Yeah, they can't even figure out how to start a lawnmower. I really don't think mastering weapons is going to be plausible.
What if they attack us with their craft brew beer bottles? You know, I mean, especially if they're full, they could do some damage.
De Blasio held true to form right out of the gate, answering none of Hannity's questions the entire debate. Rather than yes or no, he preferred to show his unmatched skill on how to bloviate.
That's a good description of it, Limerick guy. I don't think he moved the needle very much, and the needle is about as flat as Joe Biden's brainwaves.
I see the Democratic clown cars pulling into the Iowa State Fair.
I can see Joe Biden getting out and trying to milk a bowl of something.
As I said a couple of days earlier, I want to see Elizabeth Warren, the fake Indian, asking for Grey Poupon for her corn dog. She's a bit of a snob when it comes to food. I've heard that from people who are familiar with the drivers on her campaigns here in Massachusetts.
Hi, Howie. Governor Patrick calling. Hey, I just heard you sent out a tweet about Soul Cycle. What happened? Did you follow the stationary bike? We're going to be saying.
Soul Cycle. Somehow I never heard of that company, but I like it a lot. Just like I never heard of that company in Boston that was being picketed supposedly by their own employees because they were selling mattresses to the vendors who were supplying the detention centers down on the border. One of the texters just had a suggestion: never bring a craft beer bottle to a gunfight. I wonder if they're going to address that issue in this new screen gem that's about to open wide. The Hunt, it's called.
Howie, you said you used to be 6'1". Was that 6 foot 1 inches wide? Yeah, we know. You didn't come here to be made sport of.
Actually, I was pretty wide at my widest point a few years ago, but I don't think I ever reached 6 feet 1 inches tall. Nadler, on the other hand, he's 5'2", and I think he may have been 5 feet wide.
Martha Lewinsky wanted a white picket fence, a husband and kids, huh? Well, she blew it.
I don't know if that should have gone through or not. Well, I'll let it. It's not a big deal.
Howie, that knucklehead from Vermont, what his initials are BS. I mean, what else do we need to know?
You can't read too much into initials. After all, Hillary Clinton's initials were HC. And there's some real good people with the initials HC, right?
Can I get me a deplorables hunting license here?
You think they'd rather be hunting deplorables or going wind surfing with John Kerry out off the island of Nantucket?
That was your last chump line message. Thank you for calling Howie Carr, you chump.
All right, that's it for the Chump Line today. The Chump Line is the recorded voicemail message service of the Howie Carr Show. You can call and leave a message at any hour of the day or night, including weekends. The Chump Line number, if you'd like to leave such a message, 844-500-4242. That's 844-500-4242. Press 2 for the Chump Line. Leave your message. We may or may not play it at this time each weekday. The Chump Line is brought to you by Matt.
To the office and you found out something about aliens, if you found out something about UFOs, would you let us know?
Well, I'll tell you, my wife would demand that I let you know.
Is your wife a UFO nut?
No, she's not a UFO nut. It's just, Bernie, what is going on? Do you have any access to records?
You don't have any access?
I don't, honestly,
no?
I don't know.
Okay. You let us know, though?
All right, I'll be on the show. We'll announce it on the show. How's
Please.
that?
That's really a good question. I don't know. I think going back to the days of JFK, some presidents have been interested in UFOs, and supposedly JFK was demanding that the CIA release any documents they had shortly before he was assassinated. That's in the fever swamps of the internet that's suggested as a conspiracy theory for why he got whacked. I know Jimmy Carter may have won the 1976 election when he announced to the National Enquirer that he had seen a UFO. That was at least, there was a rather wry columnist for the Village Voice he wrote a piece saying Jimmy Carter just announced he'd seen a UFO. He's going to win because he's tapped into a certain element of the population that might not vote, but they had one of their own believers. Clinton was also into UFOs. You know the pattern here, Democrats? But I think that...
Reagan was into UFOs,
Was
too.
he?
Oh, yeah.
I think Trump has asked for information, any documents on UFOs, or hasn't he said he was going to declassify some of the documents? I think more documents have been declassified of late.
They were
than ever before.
Navy documents. But Reagan had a speech where he said, "Our next war won't be a global war; it'll be an intergalactic war."
Did he? Oh, he didn't say that.
Seriously, yeah.
Come, I never heard him say that. I don't remember that.
I'll find it.
Find it, please do. Sometimes I think Taylor is pulling my leg. You know what I mean? July and August are when the most burglaries occurred from any other time of the year. That's why you need Simply Safe Home Security. Their video verification technology allows police to visually confirm break-ins and get there 3.5 times faster than with other security systems. Get free shipping and a 60-day guarantee at simplysafehowie.com. That's simplysafehowie.com. Taylor, what's the poll question? What are the results thus far?
Like Bill Clinton before him, is Bernie Sanders lying about marijuana not doing anything for him?
Yes, he is.
94% say yeah.
I think we're going to have some sound in the next hour from a Bernie supporter who heard him say that, and we'll have her response on that. 844-500-4242. People are suggesting what may be in the movie. 978, Stallone is elderly deplorable taken for the hunt. He kicks lib butt and frees the hunted. Somebody else says that Peter Strzok is used as a guide because, after all, he can smell the Trump voters. Or so he told his horse-faced girlfriend, Lisa Page, in one of their texts. 844-500-4242. David, you're next with Howie Carr. Go ahead, David.
Hi, Howie. You've done a much better job with de Blasio. I'm afraid Kennedy showed how ignorant he was of real politics. He was playing checkers. He had all the pieces, but he didn't know how to move them, Howie. You would have really skewered de Blasio in his hypocrisy. That's the problem with Republicans. They just don't know how to do politics. We need Lee Outwaters all over the place because, as I told Major Garrett back in 2015, why are all these people lined up here to listen to Trump? Because they're scared, as you just said earlier, of losing this country. And I'm afraid the statistics in Texas make that a very dark story. There are now more registered Democrats in Texas than there are Republicans. So we really have to work.
They sounded an alarm in 2015 and 2016 that Texas was gone, and I didn't believe it then, and I'm not sure I believe it now. But you're right. I mean, it's a perilous situation. Every election is now what they called in 2016 a Flight 93 election. You know, they took the plane down rather than let it crash into the White House or the Capitol. It's a dangerous time that we live in. And I think maybe one of Sean Hannity's problems last night with de Blasio is he just, it's hard to take a guy seriously who's at 0 in the polls. So he wasn't, but if you bring the guy on to your set and, you got 3 million viewers, I mean, you kind of got to try to take him down. Okay, so we have Taylor found the Reagan cut here. Listen, let's hear it.
This is an address to the UN in 1987.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war?
He wasn't really predicting an alien invasion or talking about it. He was just saying that, in a hypothetical situation, what would happen.
But he was a very space-oriented guy anyway.
Well, yeah. I mean, Star Wars. You don't get much more spacey than that, right? Christo, you're next with Howie Carr. Go ahead, Christo.
Hey, Howie, love your show.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm surprised you haven't mentioned the old Archie Bunker comment back in the 70s. And Gloria says 1,500 people were killed by guns last year. And Archie comes back with saying, would you be happy if they were pushed out of a window? They're going to kill somebody. you know, they're going to find a way to kill him. I mean, I was 10 years old when that happened, and I'm like, he was right.
Yeah.
You know.
I know. I had a professor at the UNC. He was an old-time newspaper guy, and he said, you know, they're hijacking these planes with guns. So you know I know how to stop these hijackings. Give everybody a gun as they come onto the plane and make sure it's loaded. There aren't going to be any more hijackings. Nobody's going up to the cockpit with a loaded gun anymore. His name was Bill Sechrist. I'm Howie Carr. 844-500-4242. One of my favorite writers is Victor Davis Hanson. He turns out just about a column, it seems like about every day. And he had a great column a couple of days ago, and I wanted to have him on the show to talk about it. And it's called "The Dream Team Loses to the Nobodies." And it's about how Donald Trump hired all these lawyers, none of whom came from the elite law schools or the white shoe law firms. And, you know, the deep state was so excited when Mueller put together his team because everybody was from, they were all legacies from the Ivy League and from the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Obama Justice Department. And they thought, oh, they're going to make short work of these rubes. And guess what? Just the opposite happened. The people from the unknown or lesser known law schools handled the elitists with fairly easily, took care of them easily. And you know, and again, it's even better to have him on. And they have this contempt for those of us in the flyover country who didn't go to Ivy League schools, who don't have trust funds. And I'm glad that Victor Davis Hanson is joining us now because we have even more to talk about with this this new movie that's coming out, The Hunt. That has the premise is rich liberals are capturing deplorables from red states to hunt down and murder, and they're calling it a satire. Victor Davis Hanson, thanks for being with us here on the Howie Carr Show.
Thanks for having me, Howie.
I assume you're going to be writing about this new movie, The Hunt. I mean, this is just another. This is just like sort of an addendum to the column you wrote, "The Dream Team Loses to the Nobodies," isn't it?
It is, but if you think about the kind of metaphysics, so we're going to get the deplorables as victims, and then we're going to have these creepy elites. And you know how Hollywood works, so then they're going to come out and say to us, "Well, wait a minute. The deplorables are the poor victims, and the guys that are elites are the bad attackers, so we're being even-handed." But you know what's going to happen within that framework? The elites are going to look nice, they're going to talk well, and they're going to be, quote-unquote, the bad guys, and the deplorables are going to be, you know, slovenly and missing teeth, and they're going to be
exactly
the so-called, and that way it won't be too obvious. But you get the message.
Yeah, you know, I guarantee you that you know, they're going to go to the people that are going to be doing the makeup, and they're going to say, before you do the makeup on the deplorables, I want you to see a movie. It's called Deliverance. And you know, get plenty of that black you know, tape to put over their teeth, you know, and if necessary, knock out the teeth. Yeah, exactly.
You and I know we know how that progressive Hollywood mind works. So you can imagine that they're going to have some grotesque killing where somebody puts a, you know, sword in a person's face or something that's a deplorable, and it's going to really excite that left-wing audience. Wow, that's what I really secretly want to do. And then they're going to say, well, wait a minute, the deplorable was an innocent victim. But it's going to be so Tarantino-esque that they're going to get a high off the very thought of mutilating a deplorable or an irredeemable.
I think we're going to see some
context of
I think we're going to see something in a movie that we probably haven't seen in a movie since Easy Rider, and that's a shotgun rack in the back of the cab.
You got to give them credit. They're like rust. They never sleep. They never sleep.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to go back to your column. And this is so good the way you laid this out about the lawyers for Donald Trump. Rudy Giuliani, 75, Ty Cobb, an oddly named, rotund, eccentric-looking barrister with a handlebar mustache. You know, the thing, he looks weird, but you listen to him on the radio. On the radio, you listen just to the audio. Close your eyes if you're watching him on TV. He's really an intelligent guy. He has a lot more on the ball than Bob Mueller. And then you've got Jay Sekulow. Jay Sekulow, a frequent Christian broadcast network and Fox Channel contributor, a Christian convert, Messianic Jew, degrees from Mercer and Regent. And then he brings in Jane and Martin Raskin and, quote, he found them at a tiny Florida firm. Oh, my God. Oh, in other words, they're not David Boys from a, and you know, the thing is, they're just not that bright. I mean, it's like Comey and Brennan, Brennan and Clapper. I mean, these guys are legends in their own mind. But you know,
I know it.
You wouldn't.
I went back and looked at that clip. You remember from Absence of Malice, that old film with Paul Newman and Wilford Brimley, kind of the hick guy comes in and he's a federal attorney and he tells all these yuppie guys, this is what's going to happen. And that's what kind of happened. Those guys that Trump employed had been around all sorts of lawsuits, big, small, every type of walk of life. They were hardworking guys. They were practical. They were older. And Giuliani, for all the criticisms that he was lost a step, he still understands the media, and Sekulow's an expert at it. So they had those guys for lunch.
Yeah.
And the dream team, the all-stars, I think Max Boot called them the hunter-killer team. We're going to make short work. So it was enjoyable to watch how frustrated they are. But, you know, they blinked their eyes, and we went through the voting machines, the emoluments fact, the 25th Amendment, Stormy and Avenatti and Mueller and collusion obstruction. Now we're into white supremacy, white racists everywhere, racists under every bed.
Yeah, and of all the people that Joe Biden could compare Donald Trump to, he picks George Wallace, a Democrat. And I said earlier today, I'm almost sure that in some Democrat ballots in the early or mid 70s, Joe Biden was on the same ballot with George Wallace.
I bet he was. In 70, I know that Wallace ran 68 and 72.
And 76 as well. I saw him in 72 and 76 in North Carolina when he was running. Yeah. So, and you're right. And Biden was definitely on the ballot in 72 because that was the first year he was elected. So they had to be on the same ballot.
I remember exactly. I remember Biden just gave us a lecture in 2008 that Barack Obama was our first clean black candidate and could be, he was an articulate. He could actually speak English. And then he said Mitt Romney was going to put you all in chains. And so
and they're also
got a record of, they'll not comment about Indians, Indian Americans.
Right, and then he's claiming that he's denouncing the Ku Klux Klan, and yet there are pictures on the internet, more than one, I would say, of him with Robert Byrd, who was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Can you imagine if they could find a picture of Donald Trump with a member of the Ku Klux Klan?
Can I ask you a question, Howard? Do you think he's a more viable candidate than the old guard? Kind of, they brought him out of the closet in 2004, that kind of ossified John Kerry. How do they stack up in your mind? They both play the same role, that they're going to save the Democratic Party from the Howard Dean or the Elizabeth Warren nuts. But I think that Biden is even a worse candidate than Kerry, or do you? But you know Kerry better.
When you said compare Kerry to Biden, I was thinking about seeing Biden on the stage yesterday. And, Kerry from day to day, depending on whether he'd visited his dermatologist, had a very different look about him. But I think Joe Biden took at least 2 or 3 times more Botox than I ever saw John Kerry take. The way he looked like a totally different person from the debate in Detroit, didn't he?
Yeah, well, with Kerry, one day he looked like Kerry, and then the next time I saw him, his face was permanently altered, but it stayed altered. With Biden, it changes. The alterations change every day. Some days he looks like the Joker, with a wide brimming mouth and his big white. And he's got something wrong. I mean, that's a lot of botulism toxin in your system.
It is.
And he doesn't seem. My point is, I don't think, given his age and health, that he's going to be as be able to go the distance the way that Kerry did. And it's a much different Democratic Party now, and they all rallied around Kerry as the savior of everybody from Nutty Dean. But I don't think that Kerry didn't really renounce all of his positions and try to out-Dean Dean. He tried to say Dean is, basically his message is Dean is nuts, yeehaw, and all that stuff, and I'm your solid, responsible, boring Democrat. And I don't think Biden's playing that role. His idea is I'm going to be as nutty as these guys, but I'm an old white guy that you can trust. I think that's his message. I don't know what else is.
Right, and you know, what I believe is what I'm reading off the teleprompter right now. Forget what I said last week. Forget what I said an hour ago. If I'm reading it right now, this is what I believe. And it just, that doesn't work, I don't think. And the thing about Joe Biden, though, the advantage he has over Kerry is he doesn't have that foppish Ivy League accent like Kerry does.
Right,
but that's the only thing he's got over him, because, you know, when he opens his mouth and he starts talking about, you know, I'm the only guy in the room who says thank you to the waiters. I mean, he's obviously as palpably phony as John Kerry.
He is, and it's funny how the rival candidates are not just trying to take out the leader. You can tell they don't like him, and you can tell that Obama's got, why am I in this position? I'm either going to have to act like I'm for these radical leftists that are attacking my legacy, or I got to throw my lot in with my defender, Joe Biden, that I was always, you know, embarrassed of. And I don't like either alternative. So he just sits out there in his mansion and closes the gate and kind of simmers and sulks.
Like Napoleon on Elba.
Yeah, that's what Obama is. Yeah. Well, not quite. I mean, it's a pretty nice Elba he's living on.
The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is, and you're from California, from the farm country, and I'm so happy that you stood up for Devin Nunes. I mean, that guy gets such a bum rap. And why do these elitists who, as George Wallace, speaking of George Wallace, can't park a bicycle straight, you know, these people are giving Devin Nunes crap like you don't have to be smart to run a dairy farm or anything, or fix a car or unplug a sink. Who do these people think they are?
I never, you know, I'm in my farmhouse right now, and I live 25 miles from him, and I knew him when he was a junior college trustee at College of the Sequoias in Visalia. So I've watched the guy, and I've talked to him for 20 years, since his early 20s. He's smart. He's been through everything, and I thought to myself, if they make that guy the head of the intelligence, he will get to the bottom of stuff that no one else will. I just knew that. And then every day in the McClatchy left-wing newspapers, you know, the Fresno Bee, the Modesto, Sacramento Bee.
I know the paper,
Nunes, he's their enemy. He's a treasonous Russian collaborator. It's just horrible what they say about him. And now they're in this weird position where for years they said he was a hick and he was just a, you know, cornball nut. And then all of a sudden they sued him for saying that he was a farmer. And so they sued him to get his name farmer, and that lawsuit was funded by GPS and Glenn Simpson. So he's got all these people that can't decide whether he's this hick or he's a sophisticated Washington insider who says he's a farmer. But the fact is that he was always a very pragmatic, very brilliant guy, and he's absolutely fearless. That's one thing I remember about him, and I talked to him a lot. Nothing intimidates him, nothing. And I think you're right about that. That it's part of it growing up. And my grandfather had a little dairy farm, my paternal grandfather, and boy, it's a hard life. Yeah. And it's a stinky life, and it can be a dangerous life. And for a guy to grow up doing that and then be intimidated by Adam Schiff, it just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, now he's supposedly up. He's being considered for the DNI job, and he would be perfect for that. He would be the ultimate bull in a china shop if he got a chance to go through those documents.
He would. And so I don't know. I think I agree with some of the people on the conservative side that all of this hysteria is partly because Trump is kind of like a Nietzschean figure. The more you try to destroy him and you can't, he gets stronger. His polls haven't really taken the hit the way they should. This whole blaming him for El Paso hasn't quite worked. I don't think. It's starting to boomerang. And we're looking at some weird, surreal scenarios in the next 18 months with Comey and Clapper and Brennan and McCabe. I don't know what's going to happen, but they have a lot of legal exposures.
Right, and they'll have more if Devin Nunes becomes the DNI. I'll tell you that. We're out of time. We're out of time. Victor Davis Hanson, we love talking to you, and we'll be speaking to you again soon. And if you see Devin Nunes, tell him thank you very much for his fine service. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'll do exactly that. Thank you.
I sent him $150 last year. I don't send too much money to too many politicians, but I love Nunes. Thanks, Victor Davis Hanson. Guys are terrible at taking care of 72. And if they had the presidential primary at the same date that they had the Senate primary, then Biden was on the same ballot as George Corley Wallace. And so now he's denouncing George Corley Wallace. I dare say that he did not denounce George Corley Wallace in 1972 when they were both Democrats, likely on the same ballot. Remember Joe Biden also bragged that Delaware was a Confederate-leaning state. I don't believe they ever seceded from the Union, but they were. He was seemed rather happy that they were Confederate sympathizers back then. This is just so preposterous. That these people are getting away with this. I mean, like Perez, the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, claiming that George Corley Wallace was a Republican. He was the furthest thing from a Republican. You know, what are they going to say next? That the Ku Klux Klan was set up by Republicans? Are they going to say that Reconstruction was Democrats? It wasn't. No, the Reconstruction ended when the Democrats regained control and ousted all the freed slaves, and the Republicans, they called them carpetbaggers. This is all American history. Who set up Jim Crow? Was it the Democrats or Republicans? Who engineered massive resistance, as it was called, in Virginia in the 1950s? It was Harry Byrd, no relation to Robert Byrd, spelled the name the same, but he was a rabid segregationist. And now you have a governor of Virginia who wore blackface, either wore blackface or dressed up in a Ku Klux Klan outfit. And they're calling Republicans racists? Are you kidding me? 844-500-4242. I'm Howie Carr.